Hi and welcome. I'm Lisa. Thanks for taking the time to join me here on the Whimsy Stamps YouTube channel. Today I have a couple of cards to share with you, a tip on creating a layered look with one layered cards, and a few more tips on coloring stamped images. I've stamped these cuties from the Happy Feet stamp set onto Copic Express Blended cardstock using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm going to color these in with C7, C5, and C3. I'm using the C7 in the darkest areas, and then I'm just going to blend that out with C5 and C3 to the lightest areas. For their feet, I'm using the YR090704 color combo, along with a little bit of R08. This is a great red-orange color. It pairs perfectly with that YR0974 color combo. Now for the white areas on the little penguins' bodies, I'm coming in and adding some warm gray. So W3 to the very edge, and then I'll blend that out a little bit with W1 and W00. And it just keeps them from looking quite so flat when you come in and add a little bit of this around the white areas. So here's a tip. If you're coloring with red and you want to create this really deep dark color, start with N9. And you only want to lay down just the tiniest little bit of that N9. So every other stripe on this is going to be red. And so I've come in with the N9, laid down the tiniest little bit on the right side of the hat, and I'm going to come in with R59 and completely go over the N9 that I laid down and pull that towards the center of the hat. We're going to follow that with R29 over the entire stripe, and it creates this really deep, dark shadow for your reds. So don't be scared to grab that N9 when you're using your red colors. Now for the white stripe, N0, and we're just starting on the right side of the hat and then ever so slightly flicking out towards the center just to create a little bit of shadow there. So I'm going to finish off the other two little toboggans with that same N9, R59, R29 combo, and a little bit of that N0 as well. Let's talk about these pens I have here. These are the STAEDTLER triplus fineliner pens. And I know in the last video I did sharing some coloring tips, I talked about using my polychromos and how much I love my polychromos, and I stick with that. Pencils can be an investment, and so I thought I would share another product that I use that's not expensive, but you can get some great results from this as well. And that's the triplus fineliner pens. Now, honestly, when I purchased them, I did not know that I was really going to use them as often as I do, but because they're not expensive at all, I was okay with the fact that maybe I use them once a month. However, it ends up being that I use them a lot more than once a month, and I have found that they have been well worth the small amount of money that I invested in them. So here I'm coming in with the black fine liner pen and adding some small little details to the scarf because I wanted to do plaid scarves on these penguins. And here's another tip for you. Don't be scared to make images your own. Just because an image has a nice big open area, or in this case a small open area, like the scarves, doesn't mean you have to color that image completely in. Don't be scared to try adding plaid to your scarf or polka dots to your scarf, chevron pattern to your scarves, or anything for that matter. There's no rule that says because an image is wide open, it needs to be completely colored in. So by adding different little patterns to things, like this, small little touches on your images, it gives it your own personality. And really, you're giving each little penguin their own personality, and it just completely changes the image. So here I'm doing some polka dots, and I did a plaid scarf, and then of course a solid one. And I'm going to come in on the plaid and add some red to that with my fine liner pen. Now, if you notice on your stamped image, the scarf, it curves up. So whenever I'm adding a line to the scarf, I try to follow that same curve with whatever I'm doing. Here I'm just holding the pen straight up and down and adding tiny little dots in groups of threes around the larger polka dot that I had already created. So again, this is a great way to add a fun touch to your card. You can even come in with these fine liner pens and do other things. I've used them to add more shadow where I wanted it. You can see I use them to create frames around my images. There's just so many different things you can do with these. They're great for tracing inside of stencils. I'm going to have to do a video on that for you guys. So here is my tip for creating that layered look on a one layer card. I went ahead and created my frame with my fine liner pen, and I'm taking my Copic marker. I'm using the chisel nib, and I went around that whole framed area so that I could be very careful with it. And then I just come in and finish coloring the rest of it in with the chisel nib. Now, once we have this colored in, we're going to come in with my favorite Zig cartoonist pen and add some white splatters. So we're going to need to cover up our colored area. I'm just using a piece of scrap paper here. It doesn't need to be masking paper. It just needs to lay on top of that colored image. And again, just tapping that pen on the side of my finger there and adding some really great white splatter. Now, the thing about this pen is when it dries, it sits on top of your paper. It doesn't soak into the paper, so it stays opaque. And it stays that way forever. So plus, because it sits on top of your paper, it adds nice texture. So when you feel it, there's actually a little bit of texture there with it. Here, I decided I wanted to ground my images. So I'm coming in, creating a little bit of a horizon here with my W1, and then I just blended that out with W00 and used my colorless blender to blend it all the way down and out. I thought, well, let's come in with a little bit of B000 and add some illusion of a sky. So a little bit of that B000 is going to give me the illusion, and it's also going to give me the illusion that it's cold, it's icy. So we blend that out and up with our colorless blender. Now, here's the thing that's going to take this to the next level for your one layered look. If you come in with a detail stamp, like the snowflakes that are included in this stamp set, when you're stamping these around your image, stamp off the edge of that white area. And that's going to help create the effect that this is layered. That's a separate piece of paper from the black, even though it's not. Maybe you want to color your frame red. If that's the case and you want to stamp your snowflakes blue, you want to be sure you're masking off that red area. I didn't have to worry about that because my frame around my images was black and I'm using gray ink. So no worries for me there. But if you're using different colors, be sure you're masking that area off. Simple stamping with the sentiment here. Snow is better with you. I just used my VersaFine Clair Warm Breeze ink on this one here. And then for the red one, I ended up using my dye inks to stamp that one. So I wanted it to match the little penguins' hats. I added mounting foam strips to the back of those, added them to the card. We're putting glue on our one layer stamped colored image here and adding that to our card base. But you can see here how that gives you the look of a layered card, but it's actually only one layer there. So let me know what you think about these cuties in the comments below. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments, or you can send me a message through Facebook, my website. You know where to find me. As always, please know how much we appreciate you joining us here on the Whimsy Stamps channel. And until next time, take care.